If you're an author or plan to be one, get excited because this podcast is for you. Book Marketing Mentors is the only podcast dedicated to helping you successfully market and sell your book. If you're ready for empowering conversations with successful marketing mavens, then grab a coffee or tea and listen in to your host, international best-selling author Susan Friedmann.
Welcome to Book Marketing Mentors, the weekly podcast where you learn proven strategies, tools, ideas, and tips from the masters. Every week, I introduce you to a marketing master who will share their expertise to help you market and sell more books. Today, my special guest is Benjamin Dennehy. Benjamin is known globally as the UK's most hated sales trainer because he holds up the ugly mirror to failing sales folks and lets them look at the problem. He's tough, unafraid to give blunt feedback. You don't hire him for comfort or friendship. You hire him for results. His goal is simple, to help you earn more by taking control, doing less, but doing it intentionally better. All the way from the UK, Benjamin, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show. And thank you for being this week's guest expert and mentor.
Thank you very much, Susan, for having me. It's a real honor to be here. I'm genuinely thrilled and excited to be talking to you and your audience, so thank you.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you, and I'll tell you for why, Benjamin. And it's because what happens when authors come to me to publish their books, we talk about sales, we talk about marketing, and just, first of all, they don't understand the difference necessarily. But the main thing is the word sales sort of conjures up this vision of the sleazy, cheesy, sort of used car salesman image. And they're like, I don't want to be like that. Let's talk about this mindset first, and then let's sort of dig deeper into how our authors can do a better job of selling their books and themselves.
Okay, let's do that then. Let's go.
Talk to us about the mindset, that sales and marketing mindset, that promotional mindset. What should we know? Yeah.
The problem most salespeople have, or people that have to go into sales, is you're right. We were always programmed not to trust salespeople. And one of the things I teach is I always say it's your mother's fault you can't sell. Because if you look at the programming you were given as a child, it carries over into your adulthood. For instance, I guarantee that every one of your listeners was taught never talk to strangers as a kid, right? You were probably taught that, weren't you, Susan? Don't talk to strangers. Did anyone tell you growing up that rule did not apply as an adult?
I wish it
had. They
didn't.
Yeah, no one tells you that. Also, the other one is, think about this, from the moment you were born, you were programmed that you had to answer a question. You weren't born answering questions. It's a programming. Growing up, your parents would be pointing at pictures and books going, what's that? What's that? What's this? And if you got the answer wrong, they would maybe ask you to try again. And you kept going until you got it right. And if you got it right, you got praise. Yay, look at you. So what you developed was your whole life. If someone older in authority asked you a question, you had to answer. That carries through into adulthood. So then you meet a stranger, he says, well, why should I buy your book? And instantly you feel you've got to answer them. So there's a lot of stuff that you're taught as a child that gives you a terrible view of sales. Imagine don't talk to strangers and then you're told to pick up a phone and prospect. What do you think goes through the mind of the average person when they're trying to make a telephone call to sell themselves in? What's going through their mind, do you think?
Well, they freeze. I mean, just even the thought of picking up a phone and talking to a stranger, it's just so uncomfortable. I mean, even if you meet them, let's say at a networking event, or any time that you meet somebody, whether it's online, on the phone, on Zoom, whatever, it scares them.
It does. And also picking up the phone. What was another rule you were taught as a kid? It's rude to what? It's rude to interrupt.
Yeah, you don't interrupt. Well, especially the Brits. Okay, now come on. We're looking at cultural differences here.
Cultural, yeah. Maybe in America it's different. But certainly, but most people are taught it's rude to interrupt, never talk to strangers, and always answer a question when asked. Those are three terrible things to make you bad at selling. One of the things I have to teach people is you got to let go of all the baggage that you've got. Yeah, you are allowed to talk to strangers. You don't have to answer a question, and you can interrupt anybody you like. Once you start thinking differently, you start behaving differently. And it may seem a bit weird talking in the context we are, but it's incredibly powerful changing just those simple rules.
Another aspect, too, is the imposter syndrome. Because with a book, you're sharing something that's very personal. Authors often think, well, it's the book that they're selling versus the value that that book will bring to the potential buyer.
Yes. I've never sold books per se, but I can understand the principles would be very similar to anything else. And you've got to ask yourself, if I'm selling something, what is this? The word fix may be the wrong word to use, but what is this book fix for someone? What is this going to give them? What is this going to fill inside them that's missing? How do I sell them on what it's going to do for them as opposed to why they should buy from me? It's a similar concept. People buy emotionally and justify intellectually. So what are the emotional hooks that I could say to someone that make them realize maybe this book is something I should look into? Maybe this is something I could to consider. It's a fascinating concept.
It really is. And let's talk about distractions. What's,
Yes.
let's say, a biggest distraction an author needs to, let's say, eliminate to be able to sell more books? What's standing in the way other than themselves?
Okay, so this is an interesting one. I would say, and it's the same for most people in sales, the biggest challenge most people have is they're emotionally attached to the outcome. Now, obviously, as an author, you've put a lot of emotion into probably something that you've written. It's like your baby. And the problem is when you're out trying to sell something like this, you're very attached to the outcome. You're wanting the outcome probably more. And one of the things I have to teach people is you've got to get out of the outcome and into the process. This is why we hire a lawyer, because at the end of the day, whether or not they win or lose the trial, if you're guilty, they don't care. And if they do win, kudos to me. I get the victory for winning, even though I probably shouldn't have because you were a horrible human being. But either way, I'm emotionally not attached. When you're out selling something, you need to try and detach yourself from wanting an outcome. And that's easier said than done. It's how can I get there as opposed to will I get there? And that detachment is important in sales. It's the number one thing that if you can master will make your selling life easier. Don't be attached to the outcome of what you're trying to do, which again, I think for authors is probably going to be particularly more challenging than most people.
Yeah, because it's so personal.
Because it's
part
so
of you.
personal.
You said earlier, it's your baby. It absolutely is your baby.
Yes.
And you treasure this, but yet at the same time, they often want somebody else to sell it for them, which then is almost like giving your child to an orphanage and say, hey, you help that person grow up.
Yeah.
So-
And this is a problem when it is your baby. To you, it is the most beautiful, special, wonderful thing in the world. To everybody else, it's just another bloody baby. Once you've seen one, you've seen them all, sort of thing, right? So that attachment that you have to how wonderful this is, unfortunately, isn't often shared by those you're trying to sell to. So you've got to hook them in a different way. And it certainly isn't from why they should buy it, in your opinion, sort of thing. Yeah. It's
it
fascinating.
goes into that what's in it for me.
What's in it? Exactly. Everyone is driven by selfish self-interest. Some people buy things out of charitable state, but most people buy charity because it makes them feel good. And they're not doing this altruistically. It's I like helping charity because I like helping myself feel good. How do you get someone to buy your book? Sell it to them, not in what's in it, but what it's going to do for them. What are they going to take from it? What's in it for them?
You mentioned the word process. Let's go down that route and look at what is a simple process that our authors can think about. Once they've listened to this wonderful episode, what's the process that would be helpful for them?
You've kind of got me there because selling a book, I can imagine, is quite challenging. Are you selling direct? Let me ask you a question. Are you selling to publishers here? Are we selling it to talk about it at an event? Is there a specific scenario we're referring to?
It could be many different scenarios, but let's look at it from a networking standpoint. They go to a networking meeting and they want to let people know about their book.
This is a little tip that I give people whenever you're networking. If you go to any networking event, what's normally the first question that somebody asks you when they meet you for the first time? It's usually, so what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the real reason they ask that question isn't because they're interested in you. It's because they want to talk about themselves. But the social rule dictates that we have to ask, so what do you do to be polite? One of the things I teach people to do, and this probably would work well for authors, is because you want to start plugging your book or getting people to want to be interested in your book. would be, I always flick it back. Whenever someone asks me, what do? I say, oh, look, you wouldn't be interested. It's not that interesting. So what do you do? Getting them to talk about themselves. Now, as you say, listening to someone speak enables me to start figuring out how might I be able to position myself listening to what this person's saying. How can I use what they're saying about their job and their life and their world? How can I tie that in maybe to the themes or the challenges that are perhaps generated in my book, so that when the conversation comes back to me, you go, it's funny. You say this and you say that and you say that. Recently I've written, and you can start to discuss how you have perhaps in some way sort of engaged in what they've said, if what I'm saying is making sense, because it's challenging to get apart. Does that make sense, or have I lost you?
It does, because going back to this whole idea of what's in it for them, and as you say rightly, that they really want to talk about themselves.
Yes.
They're sort of superficially interested in who you are and what you do, unless, of course, you can be of real value to them. But at the end of the day, it's getting that other person to talk and find out what they're interested in, and potentially how your book might tie into that.
Align with them, yes. And that is hard to do, because you go to a networking event and you're there to talk about yourself. But you could stand up, and when you introduce yourself, rather than, oh, hello, my name's Benjamin and I'm an author and I've recently written a book on X, Y, and Z. In this book, we explore blah, 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 blah. I would stand up and say, hi, my name's Benjamin. None of you have probably heard of me, but I'm an author. However, I write books, and those books typically help people do X. Some of them help them explore Y, and a few of them help them understand B. But I get the feeling that a lot of people in here probably don't recognize any of these sorts of things. And obviously, depending on what you write about in the networking event you're at, the odds are they should, because you're picking networking events where people are going to be likely to recognize the sort of content that you write about. I'm assuming someone who sells, writes textbooks isn't exactly going to be going to the creative writers networking event. I don't know. I don't know anything about book networking, but yeah.
And it's taking those same sales techniques,
yes,
and adapting them to it's me, rather than having a sales force. Or
exactly.
You're training, you're going and teaching somebody how to sell.
Yes.
Take us through that.
Okay, so that's some fundamental home truths. This is going to be it for authors. Authors want to be authors. Authors want to write stuff, and they want to get the accolade and the praise that comes with writing great content. They don't want to sell it, though. No one wants it. And in fact, nobody, if you ask, I've done this, I've stood up in front of rooms of 250, 300 entrepreneurs. I said, put up your hand if when you were at school, you wanted to be in sales. Maybe 2 hands go up. Virtually nobody wants to be in sales. It is a default setting. It's not something you chose to do. It's just something you find yourself in. The number one reason I have to help most salespeople get over is the fact that deep down they don't want to be there. You have to realize that selling is a noble profession when done well. Selling is about getting to the truth. Selling is about me trying to understand the prospect to see if I can fit what I have with what they need. And if I can't, I won't sell it to them. And if I can, I will sell it to them. And that done properly is through great listening and great question asking. In fact, those are 2 qualities I would expect that most authors have, because I would have thought to be a great author, you've got to be a good listener because you're trying to absorb the world around you, and you must ask some pretty good questions so that you get subject matter. Listening to people and asking questions, that's one of the things I have to focus on intently, is getting them to accept you are in sales. There's nothing wrong with being in sales. There's nothing dirty about it. And getting them to appreciate that. And then it's giving them a series of techniques like never answering a question, which most people find the most challenging thing in the world. If you're asked a question, answer with a question.
That's my husband's rule of thumb. It's like you ask him a question and then he'll ask you a question as an answer to that question.
Yes. And the reason we do that is because 99% of the time, the first question anyone asks you is never the real question. If somebody says to you, well, what sort of books do you write? You could start to waffle on about what you write, but what would be better is, most people never ask me that. Can I ask you a question? Just looking at me, can you guess what sort of books I write? Now, this will be interesting because now I'm going to get an insight into how they're seeing me. You see, this is going to help me. And as you said before we came on this podcast, you said that your questions will be based on that I say, and that's how the conversation will flow. That's how a conversation should be in sales. I'm not there with a pre-planned series of answers I'm going to give to a prospect when they ask me. I'm actually going in thinking all I'm going to do is listen and ask this person questions, and no matter what they throw at me. So how many books have you published? If I was to say this is my first, what would you say? You see, that's even a question, even though you've given the answer.
Yeah. How do you prepare for that? Because again, there's this default of when they're not prepared or they don't know how to go about this, it's like, oh, I've just finished writing a book. Wouldn't you like a copy?
Yes. How do you unlearn answering questions? The simple thing is you just got to do it everywhere. And I know that seems crazy, but for instance, if you go into a supermarket nowadays and you're standing at the checkout and you got your groceries on the conveyor belt and you got nothing in your hands, the first question you'll probably get asked is, do you need a bag? Right? Simple little technique is this. Whenever I get asked that question, I just look up the conveyor belt and go, do you think I need one? It's a question. The person always responds. I go, yeah, you probably do. I go, how many do you think? And they say 2. And I go, do you mind if I have 3? So I've done 3 questions in a row off of a very simple premise. When you get good at doing it in these silly little scenarios, your brain slowly starts to learn how to do it everywhere. And regardless of the situation. So what is it that you do? Well, if I told you I was an author, what would you say? Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah? What sort of books do you write about? It's funny you should ask. And then I can go on with another question. So my job is to do that, to tease out information from the person I'm talking to see how I could use it to enable them to discover they need my book. Yeah.
And I think that's the crux of it, is that listening that I find so often that people really are not listening because whatever's going on in their own head, maybe it's thinking about what the next question is that they want to, or what statement they want to give to this person that they're interacting with.
It would be. And what I'd find interesting is, again, this is new to me, is what sort of questions would authors get asked that they would feel obligated to answer? Can you think of any? A question that they feel they have to give if someone asks them, they'd have to give them an answer. Is there anything that springs to mind?
I think exactly what you'd said earlier is, oh, tell me about your book, or what do you write about? Yeah, that's poignant.
Go back with a question then next time someone says, so what sort of things do you write? I know it seems weird, but you can say, not a lot of people ask me that. I mean, I'm happy to answer, but do you mind? What sort of books do you like reading before I answer that? See, then you can get an insight. And if your book's about what they like, that's going to be better for you, right? People feel, but they've asked me a question I must answer. That's your mum. Stop taking your mum to networking events. Stop taking your mum to work.
It's so funny how, yes, those rules that are impregnated at an early age, and
Yes.
it is so hard to get rid of them sometimes.
Very hard. You can never, they're tapes. You can never delete them, but you can turn them off, right? And so you got to learn to turn them off. This is what I tell all my clients to do. I go after the first session, I want you to, when you go home tonight, I want you to phone up your mum and dad and say, look, mum, dad, I love you, but for the love of God, please stop coming to work with me. Yeah? Let go. What you were taught as a kid no longer applies as an adult.
I love what you said earlier about the detachment from the outcome. Yes. Talk to us more about that.
Most salespeople love their product or their service. A lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, people that work for themselves, you create something and you're passionate about it. You go out and you try and sell it. And you go out and you try and present it in the best light. And you put your heart and soul into it. And you meet people and they say, look, I love it. I think it's great, but I'm not interested. That hurts. You get rejection. You're trying to cold call yourself into things. And people say, no, I'm not interested. And the reason is because all you're doing is phoning up and talking about you and what you write about and what you do. When someone rejects you, they are literally rejecting you. Whereas what I have to teach people to do is don't talk about what you do. Talk about the sorts of things that you fix. In an author scenario, I'm not sure what that would quite be yet, but it would be easy to try and figure out. You need to talk about what you fix. So I don't sell sales training. I can't phone up someone and say, I'm a sales trainer. I'm not interested. So I don't talk about sales training. I talk about what I fix. I go, I don't suppose you're a struggling author who's frustrated that they can't get in front of enough people to sell books, are you? Now, if I was phoning authors, I might get a few say, yeah, I can relate to that. Well, that's what I fix. I don't phone up and say, I'm a sales trainer who works with authors. Very different. By doing that, I detach myself from the outcome. Because if you reject what I fix, you're not rejecting me. You're just rejecting the problems I deal with. I can't take that personally. And at the end of the day, this is slightly different for authors, but for most people in sales, the person needs what you have. You don't need them. No, that seems weird. But I have a solution, you have the problem, which means I'm in control. And that is a mindset thing. And I'm sure it equally applies to books. If your book is as brilliant as you believe it is, then your prospects need it. So you need to get them to discover they need it. And once they discover they need it, then they'll have it.
One of the elements or characteristics that often come out is the passion for your book.
Yes.
And if you convey that passion, I often feel that that's part of the sales process. What are your thoughts on that?
There's a time and a place for passion, and it has to be in the right place when it comes to selling. There's a very simple rule. People bar emotionally and justify intellectually. Most people miss it. They bar emotionally and justify intellectually. You could give the most impassioned speech and people could emotionally get it, but intellectually, I still don't care. We need to sell to both. What I would say with authors is, yes, you need to have the passion, but I would try to take that passion and convert it into questions that will get your audience drawn into you. Our job is to get people to discover they need what we have. Credibility comes from great questions. I can imagine it being an author, how many questions you could ask that could get people to realize they need to read your book. If you've mastered your subject and your topic, take that passion and rather than using it to pull people towards you, use it to ask them questions that draw them to you. And that could be equally as powerful. But it's knowing the questions to ask. How do you get someone interested in your book through questions?
I love that. And that's a wonderful segue, Benjamin, into you telling us about how our listeners can find out more about you and what you do so brilliantly.
I must admit, authors, if you want to find me, as you know, I'm known as the UK's most hated sales trainer. So it's not hard to find if you Google that, I can rest assured. I do have a YouTube channel. I'm also on LinkedIn. Those are the two primary places you'll find me. And even Instagram, I kind of dabble in. And if you want to find me, reach out to me. And what I do is I help people learn the techniques, learn the behaviors and the mindset that's going to make them successful in sales. But it takes a lot. It's very hard to get good at selling because let's be brutally honest. Most people listening to this don't want to be in sales. You just want people to buy your books. You want to be an order taker. Everyone wants to be an order taker because that means life's easy. If you really want to learn to sell, you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone and realize I have to go out. I have to put myself out there. That's what I show people how to do. Most people don't want to do it. It's tough. It's uncomfortable. It's got to be a lot easier than writing a book, though. I can guarantee that. I'm too lazy. Everyone tells me I should write a book, and I don't know how you guys do it. What I teach has got to be easier than learning to write a book. Maybe someone can show me how to write a book, and I can show them how to sell it. That could be fun.
That's a great combo. That's a really great combo. And I will put links to, especially your LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course your website, because I know that's full of some great information as well. And I believe you have maybe a lead magnet that you talked about.
I have an offer, and I'm just thinking authors may like it. It's not focused for authors, but I have 2 crash courses. One is why your prospecting fails, 10 reasons why your prospecting fails. And the other is how to bulldoze your way through objections. Now, these are more for people designed in the classic sense, but the fundamentals are the same. And normally I charge for these, but your listeners, they can have it for free. They just have to use the code BOOKMENTORS, and we can put more information on how to use that. And that'll get them access to these courses for free, just especially for your listeners. And I think if they start to say, well, how can I apply this in the world of authorship and book sales, I believe they'll be able to get as much value from it as my sort of typical customer. Yeah. So that's what I'm offering. Yeah. Happy to give that away to anyone as long as they mention Book Mentors so that we know where they've come from.
Perfect. And we'll put a link up for that as well. No, that'll be really nice. And as you know, Benjamin, our guests always leave our listeners with a golden nugget. What's yours?
My golden nugget.
You've given us lots.
One of the golden nuggets, actually, which may seem counterintuitive at this point in time that I give away, is the biggest problem with salespeople is they love to be free consultants. They love to tell people everything about what they do, and it's quite easy to nick things. One of the things about being a good book author is don't give away too much that it's almost like I don't need to read the book sort of thing. You've got to be coy with the information, create a bit of mystique around what it is that you've got in your book to draw them in as well. Don't be a free consultant. Don't give away too much.
And that's often tough. I know that that's something that I can learn to do less of. I'm really very generous with information that I give out. And I was like, maybe it's too much. Maybe
it is.
Yeah, a little mystique that needs to be added to that.
A little mystique, indeed.
That's great. Now, there's some super words of wisdom, golden nuggets throughout this whole conversation. Listeners, take a listen and find out more about the other person and less about wanting to sell the book, that detachment from the outcome. I think that was really brilliant, Benjamin. And that's a big takeaway here, I think. So thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom because to me, it's been invaluable. And I hope listeners, you feel the same way. By the way, if your book isn't selling the way you wanted or expected to, let's you and I jump on a quick call together to brainstorm ways to ramp up those sales because you've invested a whole lot of time, money, and energy, and it's time you got the return you were hoping for. So go to bookmarketingbrainstorm.com to schedule your free call. And in the meantime, I hope this powerful interview sparks some ideas you can use to sell more books. Until next week, here's wishing you much book and author marketing success.